Do you ever secretly wish you could achieve more with your time? Well, you're not alone. Most people want more from their lives, but they simply don't know how to achieve it. And I'm not just talking about property investment, I'm talking about business, about wages, about relationships. But the good news is that learning to accomplish greatness in your life is totally possible if you learn and study from other successful people. Interestingly, though, science says that only 8% of people achieve their goals. Isn't that interesting? In today's Build a Business, Not a Job monthly podcast that I hold with Mark Creedon, founder of Business Accelerator Mastermind, we're going to discuss the things that high achievers do differently to become successful. Interestingly, most of the time it comes down to simple habits that keep us accountable. Now, even though this is a Build a Business, Not a Job podcast, this is going to be very valuable for you in many areas of your life. So if you're a business owner or a professional, want to get in business, or just want to achieve more in success, welcome to today's podcast, because at the end of this, you're going to understand 13 things high achievers do differently, and if you start doing them, you'll become an even higher achiever.
Welcome to the Michael Yardney podcast, where twice each week you will learn a number of new ideas regarding success, property investment and money in around 30 minutes. Our show is brought to you by Metropole, who specialise in helping you grow, protect and pass on your wealth through strategic property and wealth advice. Now here's your host, Michael Yardney, Australia's most trusted property commentator who has once again been voted Australia's leading property investment advisor. That's the fifth time he's won a similar award in the last 7 years.
We've all got something we want to achieve in our lives. But why don't most of us ever smash our goals? Why do we talk about them for years and don't actually achieve them, take action? Well, I've actually found high achievers, be they business people, entrepreneurs, property investors, they do things in a certain way and they think in a certain way. And that's what I want to discuss today in this month's Build a Business, Not a Job podcast with Mark Creedon, founder of Business Accelerator Mastermind. Welcome, Mark.
Hello, Michael. Good to be here.
Now, Mark, most blogs about success are going to tell you in order to outperform the average, you've got to do things like begin with the end in mind, set goals, don't procrastinate, don't multitask. But really, I think we know there's more to achieving success than that, isn't there? And that's what I want to chat about today. So I know you've coached and mentored some very, very successful business people, entrepreneurs, lots of investors. So I'd like to read out to you a number of rules that I just recently read in a blog from Abayomi Jegede, and I hope I pronounced his name right, but I'd like to read them out to you and get your thoughts if that's okay.
Michael, absolutely, and I'm pleased that you got to pronounce that name.
Now, after looking at the lives of certain great men, Jegede came up with what he thought were 13 rules that he says all high achievers never break. So he has suggested that if you obey these rules, you can become high achievers too. So let's have a look at them and see which of those we are currently obeying and maybe how we can change what we do a little bit. The first one he said, Mark, was don't compare your life with others and don't judge others. You've got no idea what their journey's been about.
How true is that? Michael, my father used to say, only you can do you. So your job is to be the best you. It's interesting, we do tend to compare ourselves to others. We look at their journey, compare their journey. The problem is that I think rather than the journey, what we often do is we compare the outcomes, or we compare where people are without actually looking behind the scene and looking what their journey has been or what their circumstances have been.
I think with social media, it's so hard not to do that because, unfortunately, you see their highlight reel. You don't see all the bits on the cutting room floor, and they only show you the good things. I think the other thing, Mark, is not to compare your chapter 20, if you're only in your early years, with somebody else's chapter 45 or 67 like mine.
Well, that's true, but do you know what? It's not just social media, because I always think that one of the issues with business networking groups and also business groups that are often from just one industry is, people always giving you the good stories. Everybody's telling you how good business is. Nobody ever talks to you about the struggles that they're having.
So rule 1 was don't compare yourself with others and don't judge others either because you don't know what they've gone through. Rule number 2 is don't act the way that you're feeling. Instead, act the way that you want to feel. What do you think about that one, Mark?
Yeah, well, I guess it's a little bit like a sort of a fake it till you make it in some ways. I mean, the more that you put out there the way you want to be, who you want to be, how you want to be perceived, and how you want to represent yourself, the more true that's going to become. And there's actually quite a lot of neuropsychology behind it as well, Michael. So it's not just some rule that's been sort of plucked out of nowhere.
Oh, sure. I mean, we've often said your thoughts lead to your feelings lead to your actions lead to a result. So your results, your outside world is really very much a reflection of what's going on inside. So what you've got to do is change the way you're thinking, change the way you're programmed, get good habits, and then act in a particular way with a way that's going to, I guess, be empowering to achieve what you want to achieve. Number three, that's an interesting one. Make peace with your past so it won't screw up your present. A lot of us carry baggage around, don't we, Mark?
Yes, we do, Michael. And I think we've both made mistakes in our past. And I think that the thing that made me move past it is when I realized that the only person who cared the most about those mistakes and the only person who let the past drag me down was me. And once I realized that, and the opportunity to forgive myself, and I was having this conversation with my 15-year-old nephew in the car this morning. Actually, I was driving him to school, and I said to him, "It's important to remember that the past is a teacher; it's not a definer. So, what mistakes you've made in the past don't define who you are in the future, but they certainly are a great teacher for who you might want to be in the future."
So I guess the lesson is to forgive yourself for the mistakes that you've made. They've got you to where you are now, and now you move forward and take advantage of the lessons you've learned from those. Of course, if you haven't learned lessons from them, you're only going to repeat yourself, and that's not a good way of going ahead, is it?
Absolutely not.
Now, the fourth lesson in this blog that I read was don't answer ads that promise get-rich-quick schemes because it won't be you that gets rich quick. Sage advice there.
Yeah, it is sage advice. Do you know, I was looking this up this morning, in fact, the chance of you winning the big ticket lottery here in Australia is 1 in 8 million. So the problem with the get-rich schemes, and I've met people, Michael, I'm sure you have, they go from one scheme to the other. They're always looking for the quick, easy way. I couldn't tell you, and I'm sure you've had it as well, how many people say to me, Mark, what's the secret? What's the one secret to success or to make my business amazing? Or really, there isn't one secret. It's commitment, it's hard work, it's focus, it's self-belief. It's all of these traits that we're talking about today.
I think people are looking for a shortcut, as you said. The answer is there isn't one, and it is hard work. It's meant to be hard work, but that's why the rewards on the other side are worth it. The next rule was you don't do everything yourself. Get help along the way. I know we've discussed this in previous sessions, that on my own I can run faster, but together we can run further.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, one of the things that we do in Mastermind, Michael, is we talk about when you're facing an issue, you know, how you're going to move past it. Rather than focusing on how, we focus on who. So it's very much about who do I know, who's within my circle of influence, who can I call on, who can I get things done by. So I think it is about having those positive people around you and making sure that you're getting those people that can help you further that journey.
Now, of course, the discussion we're having today isn't just for business owners. It isn't just for professionals. It's for everyone about all elements of your life. And when you take it into account, a lot of people listening to this are going to be interested in property and property investment. We're saying much the same thing as well. Don't be the smartest person in your team. With regard to businesses, though, Mark, we see people at 3 different levels of business. The level 1 business, where they are doing it all themselves. And when you start off, I guess you don't have a lot of choice. But I know your aim in Mastermind is to get people to build a level 3 business where it's not dependent upon them.
Yeah, absolutely. And a big part of that is to have not just individual accountability, Michael, but the concept of collective wisdom. So having people around you, as you say, who are smarter than you. And that's one of the things I love about what we do. And that's true in property, in life, as much as it is. I mean, you and I have mentors and you and I support and coach each other. So it's as true in life as it is in property and in business.
I guess a corollary to this, where it says don't do everything yourself, is you should be hanging around with other people as well who you're going to learn from and benefit from. So be careful who you hang around with. And if you're not hanging around with the right people, you better get a new tribe of people around you, Mark.
Yeah, that's a great saying. I like it.
Now, don't envy what others have. That's the next rule that Gigi came up with. He said, don't envy what others have. You don't know how they got it.
Well, not only do you not know how they got it, but you don't know what price they had to pay in order to get there. And Michael, I've got a good friend who, and when my kids were younger, they used to sort of envy him in some ways. He's an exceptionally wealthy man. And what they didn't know, though, and I knew because he was a good friend, is that, yes, he was exceptionally wealthy. He had a very, very successful business. His marriage was terrible. His relationship with his children was terrible. He had very, very few friends. So it is the, careful, all that glitters isn't gold, because objectively, as an outsider, it looked like he was living the perfect life.
I think one of the other traits of successful people, Mark, is that they're proud of other people that are successful. They appreciate the trials and tribulations they would have to get there. So the average Australian's got this tall poppy syndrome, and they do envy other people and they want to bring them down to their level. I remember when speaking to our mutual friend Tom Corley in the United States and mentioning about this tall poppy syndrome, he'd never heard of it. It's something peculiar to Australians to mow us down when you're ahead, to envy other people, while in other parts of the world they say, hey, well done, I'd like to be like you.
Yeah, it's very true. It is, unfortunately, it is very Australian. Michael, I had a good friend who a number of years ago bought himself a very exotic sports car. And when I saw he'd bought it, I rang him and I gave him a call and I said, mate, I know you've wanted one of these things for a long time. Congratulations. That's awesome. I'm so excited for you. And he said to me, do you know what? I've received 10 calls today and that you are the first person that said that to me. Everybody else said, oh, midlife crisis, oh, you've got too much money, all of these negative things. And yeah, I really struggle with that, to be honest.
Interesting how people think. But if you're envious of other people, if you don't appreciate what they've done to get there, you're not going to enjoy the journey, and you're not going to enjoy it when you get there either. Now, the next rule that came in this blog from Gigi was, if you can't say anything nice, don't say anything. I like that one.
Yeah, I think that's very true. Can I tell you, that's something my mother used to say to me? And again, I shared that with my nephew this morning. My mother used to say to me all the time, Mark, if you've got nothing nice to say, keep your mouth shut and say nothing. And I think it kind of ties back into what we were just saying before, Michael, that if you're going to live in envy, then you're best off just saying nothing. And I think by adopting that process, it'll give you the opportunity to actually look for the positive things as opposed to focusing on the negative.
Unfortunately, many Australians want to gossip, want to run other people down, think about silly things to say, while high achievers, they're beyond that. They've moved on to the next level. Rule number 8 by Gigi was, be comfortable only outside your comfort zone. I think what he was getting at was that every day you should do something outside your comfort zone, because really that's where the next level of success is, Mark.
Look, I couldn't agree more. I think comfort is the great enemy of innovation. It's the great enemy of progress, and therefore the enemy of success. So when we're comfortable, it's very easy just to say, well, this is okay. I don't really need to do any more. I don't need to stretch myself any further. So I don't know that I do something every day that scares me, Michael, but I certainly try to practice doing something that pushes me outside my comfort zone as often as I can.
Well, that's one of the reasons I've always had mentors, always, I guess, for the last 2 decades, because their job is to see your blind spots and also to keep you accountable, but also to stop you being too comfortable, because I guess it's our own brain's nature to keep us within our comfort zone. Your brain's there to protect you and stop you doing things that are scary. So sometimes you need that little push from the outside.
Well, you and I had a conversation yesterday where I made a suggestion to you, and at the time I thought it would actually be outside your comfort zone. It turns out that it wasn't, but it was a suggestion. Look, maybe we need to think about doing something a little bit different from the way we normally have been.
I guess this is one of the times I probably should make a bit of disclaimer. I have fun in these chats with you, and you are my business partner, but you're also my business coach, and you did that in the context of that, where you had some ideas for my business, one of my business units that you're not personally directly involved in, but you had an idea and said, hey, Michael, have you thought about this? And while I actually thought about it, Mark, I hadn't gone ahead and done anything because there were too many other things to think of instead. So really needed somebody from the outside to say, why don't you do this? And already things have been implemented. How often do you find you're doing that with people in Business Accelerator Mastermind?
Michael, on a regular basis, we talk to our members in Mastermind and they've got an idea, and sometimes it's just a very, very small blind spot that they've got. I think one of the most dangerous things in business is that, well, we've always done it this way. And that sort of fits into that comfort zone. Well, we've always done it this way. I mean, my answer always is, well, and so you're going to continue to get what you've always got. If you want to push further, if you want to grow, if either what you want to grow your business or you want to grow the time that you get away from your business, then you're going to have to do something different.
Similarly, if you do what everyone else does, you're going to get the same results they get. And in general, in small business, in professional practices, and even in investing, the results aren't that great, are they? So you do have to move outside. All the success is outside your comfort zone. Otherwise, you'd already be where you want to be. The next rule was, if you're going to jump off a bridge, make sure you know how deep the water is. That reminds me of one of the sayings my mother would have said, just if Mark's going to jump off the bridge, do you mean does that mean you're going to do it?
Goodness me, Michael. My mother used to say that to me, well, if we really jumped off the bridge, then you would too.
Yeah.
100%. I think
there is some truth in what they're saying. If you're going to jump off the bridge, make sure you know how deep the water is. And so I heard a very successful business person say something slightly different but similar. Only fight a fight that you're going to win. And he was talking about a business battle. Choose your battles. Be careful what you do. So sure, you should get out of your comfort zone, but only put one toe in the water. Don't jump in with both feet.
So look, I like this. I think that you want to be careful of what the depth is. You don't want to end up with two broken legs. But, sometimes also, Michael, checking the depth and spending too much time, spending too much energy in checking the depth can actually hold you back. So I like to think if you're not sure of the depth, at least throw 1 foot in the water and let's just see what happens from there.
I can also think of times that you've spoken to me in the context of a business coach and to our clients in Business Accelerator Mastermind, where the advice was, no, don't have a fallback position. If you're going to do it, just go ahead and do it, because if you don't have a plan B, if you don't know the depth, you're just going to keep swimming until you get across to the other side.
Yeah, 100%. What's the old story? Bite off more than you can chew and then just chew like hell to get there.
That's again where it's helpful to have somebody on your side to discuss things. Change only what you can change and let go of the rest. That was another rule.
Yeah, we often say it's a matter of controlling the controllable. For example, Michael, I think we often see this in human interaction. So we try to change other people. And, I've always said that you really can't change somebody else's behavior. All you can do is change the way that you choose to react to it. It kind of reminds me, Michael, if I can, of a poem that I really love called Invictus by William Henley. And the closing stanza of that says, it matters not how straight the gate or how charged with punishment the scroll. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. So you are in control of things, and you can only be in control of the things that you can actually control. You've just got to let go of the rest.
Mark, I am so impressed. That just came out of your head. You weren't reading that.
I love my poetry.
Yes, you do. You also love your music. That's another little secret I'm going to give away. You play the drums and you're a bit of a musician. So there's a number of strings to your bow. And I think another area where you bring great depth to our business and also to the clients of Business Accelerator Mastermind is you've actually worked with lots of businesses. You are not just focused on one particular area, and you've had experience amongst a range of businesses, and from small businesses to very large national businesses, franchise businesses. So getting that sort of experience for many years under your belt helps you in your own business, but also helps others.
Yeah, it does, Michael, because I couldn't tell you the number of times I've seen something in one industry and I've gone, well, there's no reason why that can't work in the other industry. But it's one of the problems when who you associate with is only people in your industry, because only so much information goes around those circles. So if I pick up something in one industry and drop it across, often the people in the second industry have never heard of it. They've never thought it could apply in their business. So it's one of the things that I love to be able to do, is pick up these bits and pieces elsewhere and repurpose them and apply them.
So maybe we should take a quick break and discuss what Business Accelerator Mastermind does, because we just mentioned that a couple of times. And it came in the context of change only what you can change and let go of the rest was the rule. But I think a lot of people may take that too literally, and they're not going to change because they think, hey, it's not for me, this is how I do it. The other thing they say is that may work for them in other industries, but it's not the way a printer does it, or a pool maintenance person does it, or an orthodontist does it.
Yeah, well, you and I both know that we hear that quite a lot, but we also know that it's not correct. That is very much an example of, well, this is the way I've always done it. This is the way I've taught. So let's talk about a lot of professional practices, Michael. When you go and you earn your qualifications, you never really taught about how to run a business. You taught about how to be a professional. And so often you learn that how to run the business side of things from mentors or from more senior people in the business who have always done things in a certain way. And then they don't go about looking at different ways of doing it. So, I mean, that's one of the things that we do in Mastermind, as you know, is to introduce new ideas, different ways of doing things. But they're not just ideas that we pull out of the hat. They're ideas that are known, they're proven, they're trusted, and we know they work.
Yeah, they're not just for business people, because a lot of professionals are part of Business Accelerator Mastermind. And I know they sometimes have a bit of a barrier moving to that, because they think, hey, I've gone to law school for 6 years, and we have lawyers as part of Business Accelerator Mastermind. Oh, I've gone to dental schools, and we actually have dentists and prosthodontists as part of Business Accelerator Mastermind. I shouldn't have to learn how to run a business, build a business, market, do these things. That's not true.
No. Well, do you know what? It is true if all you want is a professional practice that gives you a reasonable living for 40 years, and then when you're ready to retire, you close the doors and you walk away. Then if that's what you want, it's absolutely true. But if you actually want something which is, I know scalable is kind of the real buzzword at the moment, but if you want something that's not just scalable, but eventually saleable as well, you have to do things differently, and you have to think as an entrepreneur and as a business, and not just as a professional. But the great thing about that, Michael, is that we can show you exactly how to do that. So you don't have to do a lot of the thinking. You just have to do the implementing of the processes that we provide.
So in Business Accelerator Mastermind, we help business owners and professionals build a true business and not just have a job, because a lot of them are still just at what we call a level 1 business, where it all revolves around them and they have minimal control and minimal freedom. And that's actually not why they went into business. They wanted more time, they wanted more freedom, they wanted more money. But the problem is a lot of people kill themselves in the process of getting there.
Yeah, they do. They do. The answer is not to just work harder. And I couldn't tell you how many times I've had that conversation where people say, right, so, well, what are your plans? Where do you want your business to be? Oh, in 12 months' time or in 3 years' time, I want to be here. Well, how are you going to get there? Well, I'm just going to work harder. And of course, you have the conversation with them in 12 months' time, and all that's happened is they've worked an awful lot harder. They might have made a little bit of extra money, but what they've done is they've dug themselves deeper and deeper into the business. And so the option to get out, to scale themselves out, just becomes further and further away, unfortunately.
So if you're considering growing your business, taking advantage of the challenges that we're currently having are also going to give great opportunities. Difficult economic and business times like this have always been a time when there's been a transfer of wealth and a moving up in the scale. And yes, there are some businesses and some professional practices even that may not survive the economic challenges of 2020, but there's others who are setting themselves up to move to the next level. And I know, Mark, we're actually coming across two groups of people, and it's much the same with property investors as well. Some are sitting in the sidelines saying, no, I'm going to wait till somebody rings the bell, and when the market's bottom, then I'm going to get in. And it's much the same with businesses too. They're saying, oh, look, I haven't got time to do it now. I'm running around too much. I'll wait until the market improves to get a business coach, to join a mastermind group, to get your help.
Yeah. And look, that's a really good idea if you want to start from behind the 8 ball. So if you want to have a slow start, so when the market does improve, when the economy picks up, when your particular business or your profession starts to recover even more, if you want to be behind the eight ball, if you want to be behind your competition, if you don't want to actually take advantage of the opportunities and let somebody else slip in and take those from under your nose, then that approach of waiting is a really good idea. But those people that we're working with, Michael, who aren't doing that, they are very well positioned. And in fact, some of them are already taking great advantage of some incredible opportunities that are coming their way as a result of the current circumstance.
They are. So if you want to find out more about this, go to metropolmastermind.com.au. There'll be a link in the show notes, but metropolmastermind.com.au, where you can find out a little bit about what Mark does, but more importantly, click on the link there and organise a time to have a one-on-one chat with Mark, a suitability call to see if his and our services can help you, and if your business is appropriate for that. Well, let's get on with these other rules in this blog that I read a little while ago that interested me, because one of the rules, the next rule, was what other people think about you is none of your business. An interesting twist on words. What others think of you is none of your business.
Yeah. Do you know, I used to say this to my kids all the time. Like, everybody's got an opinion, but at the end of the day, it's the person in the mirror that matters. And you've got to prove to yourself, you've got to look after the people that are around you, whether it's your family or your team or both. That's who you've got to take account of. So I'm very careful about whose opinion I take note of. And I think that's because everybody's got one. I mean, look, the current circumstances have seen it. I saw this great post on Facebook the other day, and it said, didn't finish high school, thought that there was no value in maths and science, 20 years ago, but now they're suddenly epidemiologists and experts on viral infections. So everybody's got an opinion. You've got to be very, very careful about who you listen to, and then take that advice very carefully, and then use your judgment into how you implement it.
Well, it goes a bit with what we said about the tall poppy syndrome. People will always talk about you. And if they don't, you're probably not worth much. I have these trolls who follow me on YouTube, faceless, nameless, fake names, who are worried that baby boomers have made so much money, and they're hoping the property market is going to crash now to even the money, bring it back to these people who, as I said, faceless and nameless and pessimists about the world. So there'll always be people out there. Ignore what anyone else, other than those people who are important in your life, say about you, and hold firm to what you know and what you believe. Now, the rule number 12 from this blog by Gigi sort of goes back a bit to what we said a moment ago. Never test the depth of the river with both feet. So here he's not jumping off a bridge, but what I think he's getting at, Mark, is don't put all your eggs in the one basket.
And Michael, how many times have we seen that, both in life or in business, or certainly in property? So people put all their eggs in one basket, and it's certainly about spreading the risk. I mean, one of the things that we do for business owners, professionals, entrepreneurs, is to make sure that their business is well-rounded and there's some variety to what they're doing. But I guess it also gets back to what you said before, that whilst you shouldn't put all your eggs in one basket, sometimes testing the river with both feet, actually jumping into something and not having a safety net, just means that failure is not an option.
Sure. But I guess here with the concept of diversification, as you said, in property, you shouldn't only be in the Sydney market or Melbourne market or Brisbane market. You should have some blend. Having said that, property is very lumpy. But in business, you shouldn't only depend on Facebook advertising or Google ads or people coming in off the street, because we've seen what happens with shops closing down. So whether it's in your marketing or in just one service or one product. And I know that's where, when somebody sits with you as a business coach, by having the depth of information, the perspective from multiple industries, you can actually see how they can bring other streams of income, marketing, clients, referrals into the business.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all about developing pillars, both in, as you say, both in terms of the service and product they provide, the way they provide it, the way they get the people in the door, the way they deliver their service. The more pillars that we've got, as long as we're focused on each of them and we're across each of them, you're going to give your business so much more balance.
Now, the last of the 13 rules of high achievers in this blog said, honesty is a very expensive gift. Don't expect it from cheap people.
Yeah, I think the thing to be aware of is that everybody has an agenda of some sort. So, we spoke before about being careful about where you get advice from and surrounding yourself with people who are like-minded and who are going to support you and give you that group wisdom or that collective wisdom. I think with honesty, we've got to remember that most people have an agenda, and so you need to listen to what's being said to you with an eye on that agenda at least. Michael, I heard this great saying a little while ago, and it was only a true friend will stab you in the front. And I think that's really what this is about. Honesty is actually an expensive gift. So find somebody who's going to be brutally honest with you and not tell you what you want to hear, tell you what you need to hear, and then take that advice very, very soundly.
Well, there we go. 13 rules that high achievers follow the way they do things differently. And there seems to be one secret that almost all these successful people that I've been dealing with know. And the secret's very important because it's the reason that they're successful in the first place. And it can be summed up in the words of the mighty Aristotle, who said, "We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence then is not an act, but a habit." And in fact, I've written about that in my book, Rich Habits, Poor Habits, which is the fact that rich people have particular habits that make them wealthy, that make them successful. Now, we know wealth and success aren't necessarily the same thing, but I think it's important to recognize when you're looking at other people, successful people have gone through a painful process of forming the habits that they have today that make them successful, which means you can also become financially prosperous. You can become successful if you make up your mind to do it, develop the habits and the thoughts of successful people, and then hang around others as well. So that's one of the benefits really of a mastermind group, isn't it, Mark? The fact that when you're hanging around other people, you're going to get ideas from them, ways of thinking from them, and you're going to be accountable to them.
Yeah, you are. And Michael, one of the things that I know you and I both love about what we do in Business Accelerator Mastermind is that we have that kind of, superhero cape at the door policy, and everybody that's in Mastermind is really happy to share. They share their wins, they share their losses, they share their lessons, they share, the sort of the peek behind the curtain secrets in their business. And that's having those sorts of people around you is just absolutely invaluable.
But it's a sign of the people that they're actually prepared to do that, and they actually revel in other people's successes. They're happy actually to pass the secret on rather than holding it to themselves. I remember reading just one of those funny memes on Instagram the other day saying there's 2 secrets to success. The first one is don't tell everybody everything you know.
Perfect.
And obviously, there's that group of people who say, I'm going to hold it all back. And that's okay. You don't give it to your competitors. But if you've got some friends and if you can share success, if you've got a mastermind group, that helps. So if somebody wants to understand more about Business Accelerator Mastermind, Mark, I'm sure you'll be happy to take their calls if they go to metropolemastermind.com.au.
Yeah, Michael, I'd be delighted to.
Right. So thank you very much. Again, there's 13 rules that high achievers follow to make sure they remain high achievers. Look forward to our next monthly chat next month.
So always good fun, always good to chat with you.
Pleasure, Mark. Well, now that you know 13 rules that high achievers follow, maybe you could tell somebody else who wants to achieve more in their life about this podcast. Why not share it? There's a share button on every podcast app, or just tell somebody about it, or tell somebody through social media. If you want to tell the world about what you've learned, I'd really appreciate it if you would leave a review on whichever app you're listening to. And if I read out your review, as I'm about to in a moment for somebody, email me, michael@metropol.com.au, and I'll say thank you by gifting you one of my books. Now, T Brown 036 left a review recently on Apple Podcasts saying, such an amazing podcast. I love listening to your podcast and learning new things every time. Incredible, inspiring, educational, and impactful. Thank you for sharing your wisdom. Boy, lovely words. I really appreciate your kind thoughts. Email me, michael@metropol.com.au, and I'll say thank you by gifting you one of my books. I'll be back real soon, twice a week with the Michael Yardney podcast. But if you'd like to have a chat with Mark Creedon to see how Metropol's Business Accelerator Mastermind could help you, go to metropolmastermind.com.au. There'll be a link in the show notes. And if you'd like to catch up with me between these twice weekly shows, just follow me on social media. Just look for Michael Yardney. Catch up with you real soon. In the meantime, have a great week. Make it a great week.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Michael Yardney podcast, which was brought to you by Metropole, who help their clients grow, protect, and pass on their wealth through strategic property and wealth advice. If you like what you heard and don't already subscribe, you'll find us on iTunes or on your favourite Android app as the Michael Yardney podcast. Watch out for our next show, which comes to you twice a week, and you'll learn some new ideas about property investment, success, and money in around 30 minutes. To get more of Michael's thoughts, go across to www.propertyupdate.com.au and sign up for his daily morning briefing, and you'll hear from not only Michael but a group of leading property success and money experts. And just a reminder that the information you heard in this show today is general educational advice and not specific investment advice, as we don't know your personal circumstances. If you're looking for specific advice, why not ask the team at Metropole to help you?